Welcome, everybody. Welcome to day 5 of the 7-day World Interspecies Communication Practice Challenge. This is slightly different than the regular twice-a-year practice challenge because this time we are celebrating World Interspecies Communication Month, which happens all October. It's our first one, and we hope to have celebrations every October hereafter to honor the species of the world and to create more awareness amongst the general population for what's possible and what we can do together, all the species, to make this world a better place. So this practice challenge honors that. And in honor of that, we are visiting 7 continents, all the continents on this planet. And today we are visiting Africa. And we are going to be visiting with Kate Muller, and she is going to be talking to us about listening to nature, because this is a really key topic, and she has an affinity for it, and she has lots of expertise in this area, and she's going to have some great exercises and tips for us. But Kate lives in South Africa. She has a bachelor's with honors in Fine Art and Anthropology. And she's also worked as a permaculture market gardener and nature guide. And she's run huge environmental education programs at Landmark Foundation's Leopard and Predator project. And there she inspired more than 8,000 kids to just get out into the wild and appreciate it and learn about it. And she studied with Amelia Kinkade, with Anna Breytenbach, and she also graduated from Wynter Worsthorne's Animal Talk Africa's Academy. So great background, great education, and she's come into her own with her own expertise and her own passions and her own way of doing things. And we're so thrilled to welcome Kate today. Hello, Kate.
Hi, Josh, and hi, everyone.
So great to have you here.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I was you know, in creating this series, I was trying to think of all the different aspects that I'd want to incorporate to kind of give a good broad overview of ways that we communicate with our world. And it's not just about animal communication when we're learning this. It's about communicating with all sentient life, and things that we don't think are even sentient have a consciousness, and you can communicate with them, and they have lots of wisdom to share. And that's why I thought, boy, it would be great to talk to you about the nature part of this, because that's your deal. That's where you're coming from.
Thank you, Josh. It is. It's actually, I mean, all of my work lights me up, but the nature connection and the listening with nature, I think it's really that stokes my fire, that drives the passion, and that helps me in, doing something that's quite different. And so I think that's also something that I want to convey to people in this talk, listening to nature, is that you can receive incredible support and strength for empowering your journey with really intuitive communication with all of life. Like, it's not even, we call it interspecies, but it's actually the consciousness in everything, like you so beautifully said. And that's in land, in the elements of the weather, of rocks, of fire, of water. And it's in the plants and the trees, the fungi. And it's incredible when we open to this. When I was just starting out, I remember watching an interview, similar to this, with an animal communicator who'd sort of been doing this for 30 years. And she kind of had this little sneaky look on her face. And he said, "Now, I heard you do some other interesting communications." And she said, "Oh, yes. Animal communication is just the beginning."
Yeah, I'm interested in this part of it because right now we're talking to a friendly audience that we all want to learn this. We all are learning this. We're doing it, and we're open to it because we've heard of it, and it's something that's real to us. But what do you say to somebody out there who just thinks you're crazy? Because even animal communication to a lot of people feels insane. It just feels like something that you are off your rocker. And then you add in, oh yes, and I talk to rivers and rocks and trees and earth. I mean, what do you say to them?
Well, there are two components. One is to ask them, well, how do you feel within nature? And what is your experience when you're in nature? Now, a large part of the public who do not believe in consciously talking with nature, they do have a loving bond with nature. They feel at home in nature. They feel that sense of personal guidance and support that happens when they're in nature. Mm-hmm. And then depending on the person, and this is the more you cultivate your intuition, the more you cultivate that place of meeting where you can meet this person and what will help them cross that boundary is that, well, this is not really something new. It's something people have been doing for centuries, for eons, as old as, humanity is. We've been talking consciously for nature, both for survival, for food, for medicine, and then for relationship. When nature is your home, we're in loving relationship with it. And I think this is one of the most important elements. And it actually came through, I was just reminded, I saw the trailer for David Attenborough's documentary again today. And it's moving from this idea of separation with nature to, no, we are, when we're actually living in a co-creative, harmonious relationship with nature. Mm-hmm. And so it's just about listening and observing, like we do with people in our lives, to have healthy, harmonious relationships.
Right.
But it's the mechanism of the listening that, we're going to get into in this talk, and where things get really interesting.
Yeah. And I love the title, because my background is also in communication, for people, marketing, communication, and writing. I'm that's what I've always done. But I'm a quiet person. And the reason why I do so well with the writing is because I can listen. That's my first goal, is to really listen to what somebody's telling me. And then I'm able to translate into some writing that works really well. So the listening part, I think, is a really big skill in any communication, and animal communication or nature communication, because it's not all about us just talking and it's communicating. This is a huge half of it.
Yeah. Well, something that I always teach is that we're listening, and we're actually sending out messages already. Uh-huh. So the process of learning, if we're going to call it animal communication, interspecies communication, or kind of communication with the spirit of nature, with all of life, it's actually, rather than learning something new, it's about becoming aware and conscious of what's going on. So, for example, like when I was a nature guide, I think I'd done one animal communication workshop a number of years before. I was interested in deeper nature connection, but I hadn't actually done any formal studies. Something that I would find is that I would just, I'd meet clients and people, and I would just know what to offer them in terms of walks or drives or nature experiences. And I would just gently take them. And so it wasn't like a conscious plan, but it was almost like I would just encourage them to be quiet and to listen. And we'd start having magical experiences together. I was also great in the curio shop. I knew exactly what to draw their attention to. So was I consciously thinking, how am I going to make this experience the most for them? How am I, going to give them gifts, get them gifts that remind them of their experience and spread that to their family? Well, I wasn't so intentional then. I just wanted people to have a good time and to experience nature the way I did. And I had established a listening relationship with that area of nature that I took them walking in. Yeah. I would spend hours just walking, being present with, just emptying myself out, watching for animals, becoming quiet, asking for personal guidance and nourishment. And this is a very important part of listening to nature, is the relationship building, not just looking for the kind of highs of the big message or the animal that appears to you across your path, this kind of magical experience. Those do happen, but 90% of the time is like many of our relationships. It's more everyday. Mm-hmm. We're building. Yeah, we're being present to each other. And so it's maybe not all just constant conversation. It's actually like you just spend time with people, mm-hmm. having fun, or just, people in your home, one's cooking, one's reading, you're just being together in each other's mm-hmm. presence. And you're also showing up for each other in your actions. So the more, I think, for me, an important part of opening that relationship truly to what's possible with nature is when you also start taking very conscious acts towards caring for nature. Uh-huh. Be that, your dedication to recycling and buying free-range eggs, mm-hmm. or be it studying animal communication and putting the time aside, or be that when you actually go for a walk or sit in your garden, that you actually choose to be present to the relationship and not just to yourself and, the endless chatter like you would with a good friend. You go, hi, and you choose to let all of that go. Mm-hmm. And show up. Yeah. Yeah.
And like you said, I think it's probably, you can consciously do that. And I think it's important probably for us to start consciously thinking of those things so that we can get back on that track. Although we probably, like you said, already are doing some of that a little more unconsciously though. But I think there's benefit to stopping and actually consciously thinking about things.
Very.
You notice a lot more. Yeah. And especially I think for everyone out there who's really maybe struggling in some parts of learning animal communication or interspecies communication or any of this stuff, just noticing these little things, I think you notice progress a lot faster. You notice things are happening.
They are. So the more we make it conscious, the more we ask for help, the more we show up with presence, and then notice and be grateful and choose to trust the signs that we get. And they can often be small things. So, for example, a mongoose crossing my path for many years now has been a sign of just slow down. Oh. Like a mongoose, it's just being small and still in nature, doing its little thing. And it would always just be a sigh of relief. Yes, I needed this 2-3 hours just to be still in nature, not necessarily planning, thinking, doing, hiking, talking with friends, right? Just being still in nature and going, thank you, and noticing. Mm-hmm. And for many people, that can just be a coincidence, or is there a deeper message? So we have a choice then to start living in the world of this is just coincidence, or we can go, there's a little bit of magic here. Yeah. I'm listening. I quite like living a more magical life. What does this have in store for me? And then you drop into the heart space, the listening space, and you let it be personal. And you go, oh, what are you saying to me? What is this saying to me? And you let that voice, that natural knowing inside of you, just come with something. Like for me, it was just, you know, and the words don't even describe quite the feeling or the sensation that goes with that.
Mm-hmm.
And this making it personal, I've found, is one of the really empowering parts, that we take it out of a realm of being acculturated, or what anybody else tells you, or superstition, you know, because that's what often, you know, receiving messages
Right.
from nature, you know, in many traditions, it's became superstitious.
Witchcraft and things like that.
Yeah. And so let that go. You don't have to do that. You know, it can be really personal, and it actually also starts, well, it can start, you know, with your animals, with your plants, you know, like it took a long time to find where this beautiful plant wanted to be, and it's like, no, I'm part of this, you know, like I'm in the picture here. And to consciously, just when you step outside, noticing the wind and saying, oh, thank you. And taking that pause to have gratitude for that element that brings change, that brings movement, to the sun, to going, oh, thank you for warming me. And you start engaging quite consciously. So how do we ask? So, for example, preparing for this talk, it was so beautiful because I knew, well, I'm doing a talk on listening with nature. You know, nature needs to participate in this.
Yeah.
Okay. So I go walking, and I went walking with the conscious intention of being inspired with nature. And I went to a beautiful big tree that I regularly just spend time with. And this old tree often just kind of, I feel grounded and connected. And I sat actually with the tree, up against the tree, and I did tree breathing. So just letting my heart be one with the tree, and just feeling rooted and grounded and connected, and letting everything go. Mm-hmm. And then as I walked down the hill from the tree and arrived at the beach, I went down and I was thinking about, it was like, what do I need most for this talk? And I was like, flow. And I remembered, oh, yes, the fish had taught me about flow. Now, I had read an animal tarot deck, you know, fish medicine was about, the message was, you know, are you going with other people's flow? You know, being blown by the currents, being washed by the currents. That message didn't actually sit with me well from that deck. And one day I was contemplating flow in my own life, and, you know, being felt pushed by currents of others' emotions and needs. Mm-hmm. And for the first time in 2 years, I saw the koi in the dam. And I felt in my heart this message from the fish, no, flow is about going with your flow.
Right. Oh, okay. Not somebody else's.
No. And I went, oh, you're right. And all my ecological knowledge kicked into place. That fish use currents for their own benefit. They choose what currents to move with for breeding, for food, for warmth, for seasonal change. Many are territorial as well. So they consciously use currents for their life cycles. So they're moving with their own flow and choice. So this is where, don't just take in information, you know, from others. You can let it sit there. And if it doesn't touch your heart and make you go, yes, go, there's something else. And then go talk to the fish. Anyways, as I walked down, I remembered flow and I remembered the fish. I was like, yes, that's what, you know, we need to talk about in this, making it personal. Yeah. And as I did that, the dolphins started jumping out the waves. Literally at the moment I had that thought, this dolphin rocketed out of the waves in a big pirouette. I was like, you're right.
Wow, that's amazing.
And you just respond. Now, was that coincidence? Well, I don't know. Too many of those type of events happen in my life now, because then what happened today again was exactly the same. It repeated, but with whales. When I connected with, I was writing about this talk, I was like, oh, this is actually about awakening your own inner knowing, that true nature in you, because it's that true nature that really talks with the spirit of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was like, yes, and I was writing this, and I looked up, and a whale also just breached the surface.
Wow.
Not like there or there, but right there in front of me. And I've been going the whole season. You know, whales normally come from July. We're now at the end of October. I have not seen one. This was the first whale that I saw. And I just, you know, and then you just celebrate and you go, yes, this is what it's about. And I enjoyed watching him. And then he disappeared. And then I sat and I wrote some more. And I just went deeper into this thought of this ancient knowing, which reawakened actually old dreams and thoughts of my own about taking people on nature walks again to reawaken that ancient knowing. I was going to call it ancient ways. And it was connecting the whales and the elephants of the area that I work and live in now. And as I looked up, he breached again.
Wow.
Right in front of me. So there is heartfelt connection and synchronicity that starts happening when we ask, when we also come into relationship, in loving, caring relationship, and when you're in authenticity as well, and just clarity. I'd also spend that, you know, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, just clearing myself, becoming present.
Mm-hmm.
But equally, those type of messages and those magical appearances from nature can happen when you're in the middle of life's busyness. So, for example, with kingfishers, every time I talk about a new project and creation, which is my teaching platform called Wild Love, the kingfisher comes to sit at my window.
Really?
And starts calling. Literally, I'm kind of like, oh, hang on. This is like too regular now. Whenever I'm talking about it with a friend or thinking about it in the creation project, the kingfisher arrives like on time. And it was one of those moments where I really started about 2-3 years ago. Well, there are other experiences actually earlier than that. Now that I start thinking about it, where kingfishers have played an interactive role in my life. So the one just sort of about 2 years ago was when I arrived here, and I was sitting down at the river close by, and I was just watching a beautiful kingfisher sitting. And as I was daydreaming, and this is something I highly recommend to everybody as an important process of nature connection, is the quality of daydreaming and contemplation and reflection. And I was staring at him and gazing, and this is often the entrance that we teach in animal communication, to just gaze on the animal, look into their eyes, and just connect with love and appreciation and gratitude. And suddenly something natural starts coming out, this communication. And I was sitting with this kingfish and I heard these words, "What are you focused on?" But it hit me like it felt actually like a ton of bricks on my heart, kind of moving stuff in me. Like, what am I focused on? We have many choices in life. And hence then with actually choosing, you know, there are lots of ideas, there are lots of inspirations to act on, and acting on wild love now, the kingfishers come back to say like, yeah, you know, what are you focused on? Where are you moving your energy? So these are the subtle ways nature can really start playing with us. But again, it's a choice of recognizing that that's real, because so often the mind can go, oh, that wasn't really real. I mean, I've done that for years, and I do this work, Josh.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting because we're so focused on the hearing part of it, you know, hearing the messages. And nature, it's from the stories that you're telling me, yes, you can get messages through hearing them, but nature typically is showing you in different ways And they're the masters at telepathy and this type of communication, yet they are choosing to show you in a different way than you're expecting, maybe.
And I think what's important is we start working when we're talking with nature, and this form is co-creation and personal guidance with nature that we're talking about. Is we're working with the individual, but also the collective consciousness. So it's like you start working with synchronicity in your life, really, where all the parts are just are coming together as a whole. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's quite a big concept. And so I think our minds can only really grapple with it more through engaging with it, through experience. So asking the universe for signs, when I said, like, ask nature to help you, ask nature to show you, and then pay attention, go sit by that tree if that's what you feel. And this feeling and inner knowing is something that I associate, because we can get caught up looking for the images, pictures, the story, the journey in our mind that comes through to us. But it's ultimately the authentic, just a feeling of knowing in our heart that brings us peace. And this can actually be almost like a thought. It's an experience, it's a sense and a knowing that happens inside. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know you've done a lot of work with kids, taking kids out into nature. Is this something that you would guide them to start being more aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do sit spots, and we'll do just walking in silence and quiet and paying attention to what's going on. And you can just start subtly talking about it of, well, what does this animal represent to you? Or look at the way, so like my children's books that I wrote, I use a lot of principles of some deep ecology and nature connection, writing it in the animal's voice. So how does the animal experience move within its landscape and its environment? So when we start thinking that way, we start activating that way of knowing inside us. Mm-hmm. So that is subtle learning. So anyone who's interested in really activating their listening skills, we have animal communication, which is really learning the direct telepathy, mm-hmm. which is awesome, important, incredible. And then there are lots of subtle tools to empower that, and deep ecology experiences and wilderness immersion are really when I've had some of my biggest breakthroughs and aha in facilitated spaces where it's a community of knowing, mm-hmm. and a community of a support where you can share these experiences with others. And I'll never forget with one, I was doing adventure guide training with deep ecology, and they were with physical education students from Germany. It was in Spain. And these kids, it was their annual holiday at the end of their first year. And they came to us in the mountains. I think we had 4 days with them. And then they had 3 days at the coast where they had a bar. They had access to every kind of windsurfer, surfboard, sports, whatever they wanted. Some of the kids went to the beach first and came to us. The kids who went to the beach first and came to us, they would always say, "This is so much more amazing." Why? They got to talk about feelings. They were guided, held, and contained, and they were challenged to experience a bigger part of themselves. So we would do things like at the end of an experience of facing your fear, doing canyoning, we would ask them to find something in nature that represented how they're feeling. And this is such a small act. And I do it at the end of my, especially my deeper practice workshops. It starts sparking some ancient recollection where you look into nature then as a mirror, which starts creating a deeper relationship. And you're like, actually, I'm like that protea that is just starting to open its petals. Or I'm like this little seed. This is me, and I'm going to nourish that. Okay. And so we start talking in metaphors, mm-hmm. which is actually a subtle form of listening with mm-hmm. nature. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can we assume that even if we're not aware yet that this is going on around us, can we assume that nature is already communicating specifically with us in various ways?
Because everything is communicating all the time. You're communicating, like I said, all the time with nature too. It's becoming conscious of, what are you communicating? Are you saying, I'm open, I want to talk with you, like, let's chat? And how do you cultivate then a open door, you know, to say, because do you want to know what nature is saying to you, really? Okay, do you want to know what the deeper conversation is? And because often we change by having those conversations. And so being open in your awareness and your experience, I think, is what helps that trust to be able to translate the messages that you receive. This is something, like I said, with the cards and animal cards and wisdom cards are wonderful ways to start cultivating that. It's that you get experiences of reflection, but ultimately only take what's true to you. And then you ask for more direct knowing, but it starts giving you language to interpret by and to choose by what's true for me. Doing guided journeys and process work with nature. And that can be in all forms of arts. It can be in dance, you know, dancing different animals. Those are wonderful ways to awaken your inner knowing and your senses. There are people who do nature constellations. I have friends who do beautiful constellations. So you literally get to put your body in the place of this plant, tree, river, and give it a voice, or give it a movement, and experience its consciousness, through your body rather than just through your mind, to really awaken a fuller knowing.
How exactly does that work? Can you give me an example? I'm trying to picture what that is. It's so interesting.
It's fascinating, and you're going to have to interview them both one day. The one is Saskia, she does Ecofluency, and Melissa Rosopoulos, Forgotten Connections. So basically with constellations, we can put, I'm not even going to try and actually describe it right now because I always get a bit tongue-tied, but it's an incredible form of embodied knowing and learning, basically. So if anyone's listening here and it piques their interest, you know, please go and Google them and Google nature constellations and family constellations. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
So what was I was looking at just what are other ways, and ritual, I think, was another thing that I wanted to bring up as a way of opening to the listening. So how do we engage and invite the conversation? It's when you drink a glass of water, it's when you make a fire, you are engaging with elements, your gratitude and appreciation, you're slowing down starts, and that presencing opens a space for conversation, like it does with, you know, we think about what are some of the best conversations you've had with people. Well, they're not necessarily the ones you forced. They're the ones that have sort of risen up out of beautiful time that you're with each other. You've relaxed, you know, you've come to a place of presence inside yourself. And that doesn't mean meditating for hours. No. I'm a great meditator, but I'm actually more of a daydreamer.
Yeah. Well, you know, those conversations also come up if there's a common interest in a topic that you kind of gravitate to, and then both of you are impassioned with that topic, and that's where the magic happens. And I think that's what you're also saying with our conversation with nature is.
Yes. And then, so this is gorgeous. And I actually wanted to tell you about this of common interest. So, and it being personal, and what arises, say, with, you know, one person or one element of nature or one tree is not necessarily going to arise with another. So when I was working in environmental education, there was a walk that I would regularly do. And you know, I was often walking quite kind of furiously, you know, planning, thinking. I had a new dog and puppy and all these things. And I started noticing that whenever I walked past this one tree on my way to the beach and the way back, I would gain inside of me, it was almost like my inner voice, I would get clarity. Oh, that's what I need to do. Oh, that's a great idea. Yes. And I'll kind of feel this peace and carry on. I started noticing, oh, it's always when I pass this one tree. And, you know, I'm interested in nature communication. I've done an animal communication workshop. I read the Celestine Prophecy when I was 16, and everything in me went, in that chapter when they're talking to plants, oh, this is so real. This is possible. You know, we can all do this. But then, you know, I was 16 and high school continued and I kind of got forgotten. But I was walking past this tree and one day I went, are you talking to me? And it felt like the tree just warmed up and glowed. And then every time that I walked past again, I would always just receive a feeling of peace and knowing and insight. Now, at that stage, was it the vibration from that tree that helped me find my own inner knowing, or was it the individuated consciousness of that tree that was speaking to me? I think it was a bit of both. And that's often what happens in those telepathic communications. But we can really receive telepathically very practical, you know, personal guidance on our life path and decisions and choices. We can also receive more of an energy transition that supports us and allows our knowing and affirms our choices and our knowing. Like I said, what happened with the whale and the dolphin breaching at that moment. Between the two of them, there was also, after the dolphins, there was a lizard who literally, after I saw the dolphin jump, the lizard literally ran like out of the sand dunes straight towards me and looked at me. And I just kind of got reminded of the dreamer. This is true. The dreamer, the dreaming. And then kind of looked and he scuttled off on his way. I was like, you're right. You know, when we dream, this is what happens. We start co-creating with the dream, with all of nature, with all of life, with all of consciousness that is in nature, rather than just being washed around, feeling disempowered, feeling like it's not possible. You start truly taking up your power as an embodied spiritual being in relationship. It's a very different way of operating. So you kind of have to learn to drive, and it's going to start small. And as you start engaging more over the weeks, days, months, and years, it starts accumulating and becoming a very different way of living. So often the dreams we make when we're 16 might only come into manifestation when we're in our 40s. We have a much bigger appreciation of time. And to me, this goes like, oh, what's that worth if I'm, you know, going to dream about talking with plants when I'm 16 and it only happens 25 years later? Or does it make you go, wow, gosh, what could I start putting in place now for, you know, when I'm 60 or 70 or, you know, or in the next couple of years, what direction? Because then what experiences is that going to guide my life in my personal experiences and my relationships, my listening and my talking with nature? So if you believe it's true, it's kind of choose to believe it's true, because then you're going to start making choices in your practical life that make that possible.
Yeah. And I just love that, because it's not, the end game is not talking with plants or nature or animals. The end game is simply expansion and finding what's right for you, and, you know,
and living in harmony. So if you also set that as part of the equation, well, it gives nature a much bigger reason to talk with you. If you're kind of going, it's not just about me, it's actually about me, us, the planet. How do I live as a co-creative participant in the community of all of life? Well, then the community of life has a much more deeper interest in in connecting with you actively?
Because right. And, nature is always looked at as this perfect ecosystem. It's synergistic. It works well on its own without human intervention. It works so well on its own. And we're missing that as humans. We have lost our way completely in that way. We're unbalanced and focused on ourselves a lot of time, but getting back to communicating with nature or just living with nature in that way, the way you're describing, I think that should be our goal. That's our end.
It really changes a lot when you see yourself as part of nature, part of all of life.
Yeah.
And so that your communications and your requests for communication are not just for personal goals.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, actually, if you're wanting that communication with the bigger aspect of life, well, then it's about awakening your bigger soul, which can only truly awaken when you are in relationship with all of life.
Yes. Wow.
And that means giving and taking and living and sharing and growing and stumbling and falling and learning to swim in the deep end and being nurtured. And, it's all of it. Like all of nature is synchronicity and harmony, but nature also has challenges. It has obstacles. And I love ecological thinking. And this is why I'm so grateful for my ecological background, because it takes us out of a romantic view of nature to a more real view of nature with a spiritual dimension and connection. Yeah.
So based on all this, it's not necessarily going out to nature and getting some actual, like a message from a tree about something in your life. It could be about that, but that's not the big picture. That's just a side benefit of embracing this whole concept.
Yeah, very much. Like if you want to awaken your true nature, like, what's my truth? Yeah. What's my true nature? Nature is participant. Nature is communal. It's community. There's a much bigger community of life.
So my question then would be, this is what nature can do for us. I mean, we can literally go out there today, and if we're observant and open, we could probably feel like there's dozens or hundreds of messages waiting for us, because nature wants to work with us as it wants to work with itself. So the question would be then, does nature do this for other elements in nature? So is the lizard doing that for the whale, or is the tree doing that for the bird?
Josh, I think I'm going to suggest that you go out and contemplate with your favorite tree, and you ask them, and you connect with that individual consciousness of the tree or the bird or the rock, and then you also connect with the collective consciousness of trees. And one thing that's really important this is why I encourage that personal knowing, personal grappling with information. So you may get the message or the answer or the experience in the moment. It may come to you later. This is a very, very important tip. It may come to you in the form of a documentary that you watch, or a book that lands on your shelf, or a conversation. The more you trust these messages coming in different forms, we start working, you see, with signs, with synchronicity, the more that opens to the direct knowing, the telepathy, and the whole process speeds up. And so it can then be for the personal guidance. And then we also start engaging then into a deeper realm, which is very physical, very practical knowing. You can really talk and commune with plants and ask them what their needs are on a practical, watering, mineral, physical level. We did that. We had so much fun as animal communication students, talking with a friend's pot plant. She started talking to her. She was in like the shopping center, and she was just doing a thing, pushing her trolley around, and she kind of heard this plant saying, "Hey, take me home." hi. She was like, geez, have I been doing too many workshops? You know, like, what's going on here? So she trusted. She took the plant home. She sat down and had a long conversation because she knew nothing about pot plants. She took down all the biological information of what this plant needed from her and actually what its role was going to be in her life. And then she went and researched on the internet, and she was absolutely correct. Oh. And we then as a group spoke to the plant about its role in her life, which then completely matched her notes. And she went, whoa, you know, this is all getting very real now. And so listening with nature also moves into another dimension where we can then help nature. So this is and help nature rewild itself, be healthy and vital, have co-creative farming relationships for food production, for humanity, for how we build housing and build, you know, architectural structures that really create harmonious community for people. When we listen with nature, it can inspire a whole different way of practically living as well.
Yeah. That is such a great part of this. We're humans are such a huge part of this world, and we can be a positive part of the balance that nature needs to thrive. And we don't often do that, but we're a big part of making that happen. And
we are. Yeah.
If we can just get back to listening.
Mm-hmm. You know. So I'd love to do a guided meditation to really activate, to touch, to just welcome that natural part that listens and that is in communication with nature, you know, for all our listeners here on this, this talk.
Let me just, if anybody is just tuning in, we are talking with Kate Muller. She is an animal communicator and a nature communicator and teacher and author. She's got a ton of experience with just working with nature in ways that most of us haven't done yet. And so she's here talking about this incredible concept with us. And we will have some time at the end to answer some questions. So if you do have questions, please write them down below. And Kate is now going to take us through a meditation.
Great. So we're just going to do a guided journey process where you actually stay fully conscious, but we're just slipping into deeper consciousness of yourself and your natural self. And for nature connection processes that you can then do anywhere when you're just at home or walking in nature, but also then how to meet and engage an animal. But if another element of nature comes to you, that's perfectly fine, who's going to really give you some guidance on listening. Okay. So we can close our eyes and just get comfortable, relaxing, sitting back and taking 3 nice deep breaths. And breathing in and out. And as you breathe, you just allow your mind to start softening and your body to start softening. Start picturing beautiful light, sunlight, just shining down on you, radiating. And that warmth moves through you, through your whole body, lighting you up. It moves through the crown of your head and all around you. Down the back of your neck, your spine, across your shoulders, and down your legs. And you feel this light, this illuminating light, just opening you, bringing you to presence. letting go of any other thoughts or things that are happening. You simply choose to let them go, and they just shift off of you. And they give you a little bit of space for this next few minutes for this experience. And your mind becomes quite excited about watching this light and what's happening. And your mind just follows the light down through your body, down through your feet and into the earth. And you allow your feelings to move with this light down, down, down into the earth. Feeling the soles of your feet, beautiful, opening, loving connection with the ground. And from deep within the earth, vital, recharging and regenerative energy starts moving up, 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 filling your whole body. Recharging you, restoring you. You feel it coming up your legs, into your torso, down your arms, and moving up your throat and into your head. You take a deep breath into this place. And then in your mind's eye, you see yourself resting up against a big, beautiful, ancient tree. With your fingers, you can feel the bark. You look up at the branches and the dappled light shining down through the leaves. You can feel a soft breeze whispering around your cheeks. And that sense of awe and wonder just fills your heart with gratitude and appreciation for this beauty. And as you're sitting here, just breathing, being present, listening, noticing, an animal friend comes walking out of the landscape in front of you, towards you, and sits on the edge of your circle. And just trust whatever you receive, this animal is a friend, a guide, a companion. And they're going to help you to listen, to know, to trust. And as you sense this animal, maybe you see it with perception, maybe you just know, maybe it's a thought or a feeling. The more you just accept every hint that comes your way, the more the doors open. And you allow your mind to drop down into your heart, and you ask with all the love in your heart for them to guide you, to help you in listening and talking with nature. And maybe they have a message, or maybe they show you something. Just open to receiving. The messages may be so simple. It may be just a sensation that fills you, or an emotion. There may be a thought of something you need to take care of or resolve in your life. Receive it all with gratitude. And look deeply at this beautiful animal guide and friend and say thank you. As it's all the precious moments of our life that actually make up our life, all the little things. And with that thanks, you lean back into the tree, knowing that this space is available to you at any time, any place, whether you're at home, in your garden, in the park, or out in wild and beautiful nature. Just by dropping into presence, to your heart, to the love, to the stillness within. There is a gentle and ancient knowing inside of you that knows exactly how to do this. It is not new. It is just a coming home to your sacred self, to your eternal nature. And resting up against the big tree, taking 3 beautiful deep breaths in, feeling yourself grounded and rooted and connected with light. Saying thank you to the tree, and then bringing your awareness back to your body, back to waking consciousness, just feeling your energy field coming back down, 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 and wrapping around you like a warm blanket. And then you can gently open your eyes when you're ready.
That was really nice.
Great.
I haven't done that in a while, and I've always struggled with guided meditations because my mind takes hold and kind of tries to do the opposite of what the person is saying and just doesn't. It's crazy. So I typically avoid those, but the more I sat with nature, the more clear things became, and I felt like I was there, and really nice visuals. I can't say that I understand what I saw, the messages, but I did get messages from,
Wonderful. Well, Josh, I think that's perfect, especially for the nature of this talk, is sometimes we might not quite understand the messages. This is what often happens at the beginning. We kind of like, something happened, but I felt something, but I'm not quite sure what.
Right.
And kind of like go, yes, that was something. We have to have beginner's mind.
Yes.
It's like a child. Well, they're often just, like when they do a drawing, they're really happy with it. They're not trying to create some masterpiece. They're like, look what I did, what I experienced. And so that going, oh, that was nice. I want a bit more of that. That's what really opens those doorways to clearer, to more, as we change our emotional and literally our neurological patterns to make sense of this. Yeah.
Do you feel like a lot of us live in cities and are not accessible to nature as much as we would like. Do you feel like there's as much benefit to doing something like what you just brought us through versus actually getting out there in nature? Or really
absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I do a lot of guided visualization. I mean, I think it's also coming from a more artistic background.
Oh, right.
As well, because but it's also that it's such a, so real world, Olympian athletes use visualization to guide their experiences. You know, before a match, they practice in their mind, because we program our neurological pathways to then be focused. What do the kingfishers say? What do you focus on? To create that experience, well, to support that experience, to move our emotions, our psyche, our mechanics towards that. So the more we do these guided journeys, even if you're living in an apartment in the city, you know, high rise, and you feel that connection with the earth, the next time you go into nature, your neurology is going to go, oh, you know, click, click, click through oh, that was a nice experience. And then you find yourself sitting and you start reconnecting to that type of connection like you had in the meditation. And then that starts spurning on a whole kind of wheel of experiences of, oh, but then I opened my heart and I just breathed with the tree. And, oh, look at this robin. And now we move into real life. Look at this robin hopping over to me. Oh, isn't this gorgeous? And then you go, oh, I wonder if this robin has something to say to me, you know? Or that fish eagle flies over. And rather than it just, again, being coincidence, we can start relating with magic inside of ourselves and with the magic in nature, which is that spark of life, of consciousness.
Getting back to who we really are, probably not who we become.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that is you know, why are we here? Is it to remember?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Well, if anybody has any questions, please do. This is the time. I know a lot of people, this catching us live is not ideal for you, so you'll be watching this later on. If you do have any questions and we're not live, feel free to ask the questions and we'll try to get to them at another time. If you do have questions right now, though, live, this is the time. And while you're thinking about that, I don't see anything currently right now. I see a lot of people from all over the world, Wisconsin and in the States and Italy. And, well, not everybody's saying where they're from, but welcome, everybody.
Beautiful. Hi, everyone. I just saw the comments bar now where I can go look at things.
Yeah.
If anyone would like to share what happened also for them in the meditation, that's always so rich for the community experience to know what's possible, because there really is so much that's possible. And something I wanted to add is, how do you actually bring this more into your life? We spoke about then when you go into nature that you start taking, you know, these steps start becoming more naturalized, this way of engaging. We can support that process by bringing symbols into our home and into our life. So, for example, you know, the picture that I have behind me is an old illustration. It's that childlike wonder of a woman sitting with beavers. And it says, you know, like, happy beaver woman with her animals. And, you know, beavers are a beautiful symbol of, you know, building these dams, which actually create other ecosystems, which support other life. And so it's just this happiness of doing your job.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the medicine in that. And so we bring that as a reminder, or having a feather, you know, or taking a branch from a tree when you had a moment of reflection and insight, and really bringing that home to then act on it, to actualize it, to remind you and remember. Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. Let me just see if there's anything else. Somebody has a question, but they only wrote half, so maybe they'll write the other half. Tracy, I see half of your comment. I'll say that. Okay, wait. So here we go. So Kate says, I felt the bird and understood heart. I also felt an energy was sent to me by the bird. I felt emotion of gratitude to the point of teary eyes.
Oh, beautiful, Kate. That's stunning. And for me, it's when we can connect with the feeling, we get a whole nother dimension of the experience that makes it very embodied and very real and very personal. And that's so beautiful, you know, that you said I felt heart. And because I was feeling, oh, there's a robin here with somebody. Robins with their happy song are a very big symbol, metaphorically, in many people's, you know, medicine decks, of awakening the heart energy. So that just actually experiencing that heart opening sensation, for me, that's a very grounded step of receiving the message to then make sense of it for yourself. Yeah.
Here's Laura's. I found myself under an ancient oak tree. Then my cat arrived to sit with us. And when we were joined by a lizard and a bumblebee, I felt at home, and the message was to remember that we are all one.
Oh, stunning, Laura. Absolutely. And, you know, I wanted to talk about bee energy, and bumblebee is related tonight, which is the community, which is really about the community of life, which is something we've been talking so much that we're all one. It's like bees. They're this little individual, and they just bumble and buzz along and just do their thing, pollinating this flower and that flower, and then making honey. But it's all the bees that make this sweetness in the world, just doing their thing. Yeah.
Tracy says, when an animal communicates and you get a picture in your mind, is this a transference of energy? The answer.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So your consciousness, your mind has a lot of interpretations. So your consciousness is going to translate the information. So it's often going to use pictures, words, memories, thoughts that you can relate to make sense of this energetic package that you've received. So something we often, you know, teach in animal communication is, imagine that there's this kind of radio box, translation box that's, you know, in the universe between you and the animal, that's making sense of the information so that you get a clear radio signal, essentially. Yeah. And some animals are, yes, better at sending clear impressions. So we all know those animals where they just look at you and you kind of like, you get like this bolt in your head and you're going like, oh, I'm just making this up, or is he talking to me?
So you think that it's actually their talent for doing this? They're
definitely. Yeah, some animals are much stronger talkers. I mean, we all know we get confident animals, we get shy animals. They all have talents in different departments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're getting cut off. Our faces are, but I was with an ancient mighty oak tree and felt a squirrel who gave me an acorn. This reminded me of a woman I used to be connected to who gave me a little silver acorn to represent my potential. I'm going to connect with her now and network about a new sustainable renewable energy business venture I'm involved in. Wow.
Oh, beautiful, Leah. Oh my gosh, I feel goosebumps all over and go. Beautiful.
That's like the perfect example of what you've been talking about, of how to notice the messages out there and make it personal.
Yes. And it can be actually just so simple. Oh, this connection, that's the action. You know, go for it. The action might be, oh, I just need to sit with this heart opening, or this consideration or contemplation. And taking the actions are a very big act of trust that help you embody then this momentum of receiving energetic messages. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know it's like a little by little you get there, and it's not all going to happen at once, likely, but you nurture it like nature does, and you become the person you want to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Josh, I think what's so important, you know, people see animal communicators, and we talk about these stories and experiences. We all started somewhere, and we all still have bad days.
That's true. Yeah.
We all have very human days, and then we can have incredibly magical days.
Yeah.
And it's part of our human experience. Yeah. It's about how do we come back to ourselves. For me, that's so important. You start engaging in different ways, richer ways, more meaningful ways to, you know, to bring yourself home, to open your path, to, you know, participate in the community of life.
Yeah.
That's what's important. And sometimes we have to be lost to be found as well. That's
true. And just from everything you said, it kind of all goes back to the first thing you said, which was about flow. And it's not about the flow, it's about your flow. And this whole experience is just about our personal flowing with our personal ourselves, whatever makes us go, whatever makes us feel.
So some, you know, we look at fish. I mean, salmon are an incredible example. They choose to swim upstream for their breeding grounds.
That is not with the flow.
That is not with anybody else's flow, you know, and you look at the challenges that they overcome, the strength that they have to embody to fulfill that cycle and that drive within themselves. So sometimes we ask them, my gosh, why am I being led to do this? You know, and it can feel big and can feel challenging to go with your flow, but your flow is always going to strengthen you and create beauty for others.
Yeah. Here we have your website up here. As anything you have next steps for anybody doing any work?
Yes. So online, I do have the Seed series. So for really awakening this magical relationship with animals. You know, as a beginner, I did multiple beginner workshops with different teachers because it's really about engaging in the experience of communication. And for me, it's so important learning different perspectives to find what lights you up inside. The course is also very much focused on opening that connection with your animals at home. They are some of your best teachers and guides. And you also get to talk to my own cat, Lily, who is a teacher on the course.
Nice.
And that can be found on the workshops and events page. I teach live workshops and I do one-on-one consults. And in the near future, I'll be doing more active nature connection with wild love as well, be that online and in person. Yeah.
That all sounds perfect. It really does. Thank you so much for giving us this gift today. It really was such a beautiful conversation, and I just loved everything you said. And I really feel like, I mean, here I am sitting in a room, but I feel like I want to be out there in nature. I've been a nature lover my whole life, but it's a renewed way of looking at things, you know, looking at it deeper. And I'm sure I didn't see it all when I was out there. Next time I'm there, I'm going to see more. I'm going to feel more. And I'm just going to keep nurturing that relationship. And I hope everybody else can too.
Stunning. Thank you, Josh. It's been so lovely. And thank you for this incredible worldwide momentum you are nurturing and supporting and following your heart and, you know, putting that time in for the community of life.
You're welcome.
And for everybody who's come tonight to join in this talk and in this energy and who'll be watching it in the future, I think that message of the bee, you know, it's all of those small actions that all starts growing and building and supporting the change that we wish to see in the world.
Yes. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much and have a very nice night. And we will hopefully talk with you at another time.
I look forward to it. Okay.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Happy talking, everyone. Bye.